Hello and welcome. I'm glad you're here. Let's start. My name is Clara Whitmore. I'm 31 years old. And for 27 of those years, my family told the same story about me so often that even strangers believed it before I opened my mouth. I was the slow one, the embarrassment, the daughter you didn't introduce first. Last Saturday night, at the Whitmore Foundation Centennial Gala, my father stood beneath a crystal chandelier and praised the future of our family without saying my name once. 3 minutes later, a stranger asked for me specifically, and by the end of that night, the story my family had spent decades protecting began to fracture in public. They just didn't know it yet. I grew up in a house where silence was currency and speed was worshipped. My father, Arthur Whitmore, built his reputation in commercial real estate the way surgeons build steady hands: cold, precise, untouchable. My mother curated our lives like museum exhibits: neutral colors, controlled smiles, no mess. My older brother, Julian, learned early how to shine in that environment. Debate trophies lined his shelves, Ivy League acceptance letters framed like art. He spoke quickly, confidently, never searching for words. I did not. I read slowly. I mixed letters. Numbers drifted when I stared at them too long. By the time I was 10, the word dyslexia had been mentioned once, quietly, and then never again. It didn't fit the Whitmore brand. At dinner, my father would ask Julian about school. "What did you get on the calculus exam?" 98, Julian would say. Then my father would turn to me. "And Clara, did you finish your assignment?" Finish. Not score. Not understand. Finish. When I hesitated, my mother would interject. "She tries very hard." That sentence followed me for years like a diagnosis. Vacations were educational for Julian. Summer programs in Geneva. Internships arranged through friends of friends. For me, they were practical. I worked retail at 16 to build character. My parents called it independence. I called it exclusion, with a polite name. By high school, I learned how to disappear without leaving the room. I watched instead of spoke. I listened for patterns. Who interrupted whom? Who never had to repeat themselves? Who was forgiven for mistakes and who was catalogued for them? It was survival. The only place I wasn't slow was my grandmother's house. Eleanor Whitmore lived alone in a narrow brownstone 3 blocks from the river, filled with mismatched furniture and legal pads stacked like unfinished thoughts. She built the original Whitmore holdings alongside my grandfather when banks still required handshakes and eye contact. After he died, she stayed sharp, skeptical, and deeply uninterested in appearances. Every Sunday afternoon, I visited her. She never rushed me. If I paused mid-sentence, she waited. If I stumbled over a word, she didn't correct me. She asked questions instead, real ones. She taught me how to break complex systems into diagrams, how to track money flows visually, how to read contracts by highlighting obligations instead of paragraphs. "Speed is a trick," she once said, pouring tea. "Clarity is the weapon." When I told her I felt stupid, she looked genuinely offended. "You see what others miss," she said. "That's not slowness. That's depth." I didn't know then how much those afternoons were shaping me. I only knew that at her table, I was not an apology. When I was 24, I started working at Whitmore Holdings. Not because my father invited me, but because my grandmother insisted. They put me in compliance support, a windowless office, $52,000 a year, no bonuses. Julian joined 6 months later as an executive trainee at $140,000, plus stock options I was never offered. I tracked filings. I reconciled discrepancies. I flagged irregular vendor payments that no one followed up on. Once, I tried to explain a potential conflict of interest I noticed in a subsidiary lease. My father didn't look up from his phone. "We'll have legal handle it." Legal was my grandmother's old firm. I knew those documents. I knew the gap. But I learned when to stop talking. The day Eleanor died, my father called me after the markets closed. "She had a good life," he said. "The arrangements are handled." At the funeral, I noticed something strange. No reading of a will, no private meetings with attorneys, just assumptions. 3 days later, a small box arrived at my apartment. No return address. Inside was a sealed envelope and a brass key taped to the lid. The envelope had my name in Eleanor's handwriting. "Don't open this yet. You'll know when the time comes." I waited for 8 months. During that time, I was quietly removed from 2 internal meetings. My access permissions were downgraded. Julian's name appeared in press releases next to phrases like future leadership and visionary growth. Then came the gala, Whitmore Foundation, Centennial Celebration, 800 guests, a $2.6 million fundraising goal. My seat was at table 17, near the catering entrance. My father took the stage and spoke about legacy, about family values, about excellence. He introduced Julian as the next generation of leadership. Applause filled the room like something physical. I clapped too, softly. Then a man in a grey suit stopped beside my chair. "Ms. Clara Whitmore?" he asked. "Yes." "My name is Daniel Cross. I represent the estate of Eleanor Whitmore." The room kept moving. Servers passed. Laughter continued. He handed me an envelope. Thick, legal weight. "There is a 72-hour activation window," he said quietly. "The documents are notarized, dated March 14th, last year. I recommend you read them tonight." My hands didn't shake. That surprised me. I excused myself and went to the restroom, locked the door, sat on the marble counter. The envelope contained a will, a trust addendum, and a voting proxy. Eleanor had placed 37% of Whitmore Holdings shares into a blind trust, controlled by a mechanism that transferred authority upon a specific triggering event. Public misrepresentation of succession. The gala qualified. The proxy named me as the sole voting agent for a period of 90 days, renewable upon review. The trust assets totaled $48 million. I read it 3 times. Then I cried, quietly. Not because of the money, because she saw me. If this story resonates with you, if you've ever been underestimated, talked over, written off, pause with me for a moment. Comment the word enough. Not for me. For yourself. I left the gala before dessert. By morning, my phone was full of messages, confusion, anger. A meeting request from my father marked urgent. I replied with one sentence. "I'll have my attorney coordinate." The emergency board meeting was scheduled for Monday at 9 a.m. They thought the story was over. It wasn't. It was just beginning.